Thanks for joining me. I'm working today in the shop, not doing anything with the self-study course for the ShopSmith. Instead, last weekend, I picked up a couple of hand planes from an antique store in Prescott, Arizona, and I'm going to be working on getting those sharpened and cleaned up. Also some other hand tools that I have here in the shop, chisels, a couple of block planes that I need to get cleaned up and ready to go. I'm going to start trying my hand at some hand tool work as well to kind of bring everything together. So thanks for joining me, and we'll get started. Okay, getting started here. I have some 150 grit paper, some 220 grit paper, and some 600 grit paper. I'm going to be getting the things started with on top of this nice chunk of granite countertop that salvaged from a home improvement project that a friend's neighbor was doing. So I'm gonna get the paper cut down into some better sizes and get going from there. Okay, so I did a little bit of testing with a couple of pieces of the sandpaper that I had shown earlier on some of the tools that I already have. And discovered that I thought I had some spray adhesive, which I do not, so I had to go to the store and get some. And while I was there, I decided to get some coarser grit sandpaper to get things started. As started with this plane here and this plane here, a little mini block plane and a bench plane. I was trying to flatten the soles, and sandpaper's not even touching it. I'm getting just a little bit around the outside edge, but this thing is so dished, it's not even funny. This one's a bit better, but still needs a lot of work, and I was just tearing through sandpaper, so I picked up some coarser grit to take off some more material, and now getting started. Now we're starting to see some progress. Let's see it there. Now I'm actually hitting more areas, but this whole center part, see, it's barely touched. I'm starting to get some there, so that's good. Keep going. Making more progress. And still more. Dishing is almost gone. It's starting to get there a little bit more, and I think I'll be ready to move to the next grid. You can see here maybe that I'm still not quite touching this spot, but I'm going to go ahead and move down to the next grit, because I think this paper might be clogging here. Alright, so that's starting to make a bit of a difference. It's looking closer to flat. Essentially there. Need a little bit more work right up here. Might have to change out the paper. I'm going to go to the next grit higher and see what happens. Starting to have a nice polish to it. Okay, so after a whole lot of scraping, this is finally pretty much flat. Had to take off roughly 3/32 of an inch all around because it was so dished. That that took quite a long time. And now I've got everything set up here for just doing all of the grits of paper. As you can see, I have been working on some here already, and I just go through and do a little bit of final honing and show you the process. I decided I couldn't get a good feel freehand right now. That's something I'll probably try to pick up a little bit later, but went ahead and just got a cheap sharpening jig. Works for plane blades and chisels. Chisel irons go here, plane irons up top. Back over, I've got just the square clamped to the bench, and stopped out at 1 5/8 of an inch, which for this is going to give me about a 25-degree bevel on my chisels. I'll set it to right about 1.5 inches to 2 inches for the plane irons to get between a 25 and 30-degree bevel. Alright, so this is the 1/2 inch chisel, and I've got it set in the jig at roughly 1 5/8 inches. And it's been, pretty well ground already. I'm just going to give it a little bit of lapping on the upper 3 grits, just for some final polishing there. And I'll just move up in size onto the 3/4 and then the 1 inch chisel that I have, and then do the plane irons. Alright, just using a little bit of Windex as a lapping fluid. And up one. Give that a pull. Pull the burr back. I don't have a leather strap for doing a final polishing, but that's pretty good and shiny right there. And this is a process that just repeats. So I've got the plane iron mounted in here, and it's essentially the same process, just using the top holders instead of the bottom holders. And just going through the final 3 grits here. So I also flattened the back of the plane iron, much like I did with the soles of the planes and the chisels, at the big parts there on the blade. And this one had actually been ground initially to probably about a 22 degree bevel there. And this is now set. Yeah, so it's, I guess, kind of technically a micro bevel, but not quite. But this is about a 25 degree angle. Right here you can see this line. And as I continue to use this and sharpen it, this will keep moving back, and eventually it'll all be one piece. But it's nice and shiny. I don't know if that's showing up at all on the camera, but not too badly polished. So this even you know, works pretty well for these, for this shorter plane iron. For this plane here, the one that was problematic. It's got this shorter iron. It's a little bit thicker, but not by much, I don't think. Yeah, same process. Okay, so the jack planes iron is in now, and this one's actually set for a 30 degree rather than a 25 degree bevel. It just gives it a little bit more support behind the wood, or behind the blade, for cutting into you know, weird knots or figured wood grain that might be troublesome. That 30 degree bevel gives it a little bit more strength, which works well with the jack plane, which is a little bit bigger and has a little bit more oomph. Now this one, this is one of the ones I got at the antique store. And it actually had, I don't know if it's weird pitting or someone was scraping sideways against it. So there's still some marring from after the fact when trying to flatten the back, but it's flat and it's smooth. There might be some just pitting, but it's not affecting anything. It doesn't appear to be. The blade is, you know, bevel's shiny and sharp, and that's good. And so I'm gonna get all these mounted back in and take a look at their performance. Okay, got a ugly piece of 2x4 just clamped to the bench here. So I'm gonna give these planes a shot. I'm gonna start with the jack plane here. So there'll be some tuning along with planing just to see what we got. Now it looks like there's a little bit of a, I don't know if this is this piece of wood or if it's something in the blade, but this section right here where it's essentially coming in half, there's a little groove that kind of follows here too. So I think there might be a little tooth in the, not tooth, but a little catch in the blade perhaps that's causing that, but that looks pretty nice. Now I'll go to the Stanley number 4 here. Oh, that's pretty. That's cutting, that's a very thick shaving, you can see. But pretty even. You can see the board here is actually irregular, which is why it narrows there, but back at the back end, or front end, yeah, full width shaving. That looks real pretty. And pretty smooth surface there. Yep, that looks quite nice. Maybe back that off just a smidge, see what a fine shaving I can get. Alright, back it off a little bit more. Alright, a little light on the right hand side. That looks pretty even. That's a nice smooth surface. And then the last one here. Alright, that one's cutting a little heavy, so back it off just a smidge. I'll go a bit more. Yeah, it's like onion skin. Nice. So. think the blade is balanced there, but cutting just a little too shallow. So step that in just a smidge. There we go. These are nice shavings. Just gossamer. And the surface is like silk. So the planes are nicely tuned up there. Let's see about the chisels. So start with the 1/4. This is essentially no effort behind it. That's nice. Okay. Try the 3/4. Have to push a little bit more there. All right. And the 1" Smooth. Okay. So these chisels and planes are sharp and ready for work. Even have a little mini block plane. It makes nice little shavings too. Or, you know, use it to break the corners. Quite nice. I don't really have any good way to hold anything to the bench top currently. I don't have any vices installed, but just thought I'd try with a couple of stops screwed in and see what I could do for the face here. I don't know if this is going to work very well. Try it with this side because this side's all gnarly. Alright, so that one does alright on the face. Obviously, it's going to be a lot of material that needs to come off there. It's nearly a usable board. And that's where that 30-degree bevel really makes a difference, and the extra weight. It actually looks pretty darn good. Now it's currently wedged, but this looks fairly straight. Obviously I could check it if I really wanted to, but not that interested. Ha ha ha. But we'll just see if we can eliminate the taper. Not entirely, but that's pretty close. I am satisfied with the results of these planes.